Hola!
¿Cómo está? We're missing Ruth.
Welcome to Casa Cano and Coffee and Pan Dulce. We are going to have a great show today. We've got a very special guest. But before we introduce you to our very special guest, I want to introduce you to the master of the house of ill dispute, Mr. Christian Cano himself, the most disputatious one.
I just realized I switched glasses for the show because the other ones were dirty and these are dirty.
Dirty,
so
that's right. Dirty.
If I am going, if everyone looks like they're in a mysterious
I'm
cloud.
Jeff. That's Jenny.
Hi, Jeff.
Ruth is not here, as you might not be able
Ruth
to tell.
is gone. That's right. That's crazy.
I'll substitute Ruth. Without the cute grandbaby.
And he who shall not be named.
That's right. Oh, we're going to get to you, Red.
What a hat.
We're going to get to
Listen, this is the first we've had. I'm actually surprised this is the first time we've had.
Should I look online for a coffin now?
No, that's a very bright
we'll bury
hat.
you without it.
I appreciate it. Listen,
very environmentally friendly.
Yeah, we'll use environmentally friendly lime too, or we'll feed you to the hogs. You know, one or the other.
Or
Stoney's probably got some hogs.
Sharks are more.
Should we see where it was made?
See where? Yes, sure.
Probably China.
Made in USA.
Flip it over to Hong Kong.
Actually,
by way of Hong Kong.
Caliphane
Russia.
makes, I think baseball league caps for the teams.
Oh, okay.
Majors, and they're very expensive.
Yeah.
Hats. This is a very good hat with a windscreen and everything else. So yeah, it's
great.
Wow. Well, that's
I make a conscious
something new every
choice
day.
because I have worked not only here domestically but with international teams around the world for almost 40 years.
okay.
So I've had products produced everywhere. I'm familiar with the cultures, with the conditions. You know, if you want to get into that, we should.
Okay.
Well, that's
Sure, yeah.
one of the topics we're going to talk about.
The
Well, listen.
man of mystery has a lot to say today.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Well, welcome to Coffee and Ponduce. I'm Christian Cano. Today is January 29th. It is just a couple more days before February, and I'm not sure what that means, but just welcome to our show. Let's turn off the electronic Russian spying device, and then we will go around and introduce yourself so that way I can share the all that wonderful stuff. We're without Mama Ruth today, so we're a little
Technically challenged.
All right.
Okay, great.
Alexa, stop.
We're always technically challenged, even with her here.
Exactly. So welcome today. I already said today. Welcome if you're watching us on Facebook Live. Those who watch us later on YouTube and also Facebook as well. So let us start to our right because you're always right, and go around and tell us who you are, the button you have, or the cause you are, and once again try to keep it within 30 seconds to a minute. All right, here we go.
Hi, Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, and of course I have my Cheer Along button. Big supporter of hers, and I work on her campaign. I am a board member of the Charlotte National Organization of Women. I was the first trans woman to ever be elected to a post on that fine organization. And I'm also wearing my trans pride. I am a appointed leader for Charlotte Trans Pride here in the Charlotte Pride organization.
Wonderful. My name is Jeff Scott. Some people call me Jefe Maxima, but I am El Hombre del Pueblo, and I'm so happy to be here to make Jenny so miserable when we have these knockdown, drag-out arguments. We're not going to have a Wired and Tired today, but we're going to do that next week.
Right.
Yeah, we had 5 Wednesdays. Yeah. This was an unusual month because the Wired and Tired is the first and third Wednesday, and we had 5, so we've gone 2 weeks without one.
Yeah, it'll be 3 by the time we do next week's show.
Sorry,
so let me introduce you to our special guest here today,
Mm-hmm.
Richard.
How do you do? I'm Richard Rivette. I'm running for North Carolina State House 107 District. It's a newly redrawn district. And I hope to have some fun here today and talk about the topics.
Excellent.
Great.
And if you had a button, what would the button be?
I have a bunch of buttons.
Okay, which one do you want to talk about?
I'm Dan Forrest for governor.
Okay.
I have President Trump. I have my Make America Great hat, and I'm a supporter of Blexit right now.
You know, I will give Republicans a credit. They are about branding.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm not a fan of Forrest as a lieutenant governor, but I did like his Run Forrest Run signs back in 2016.
That's
so
really
I thought that was very.
Yeah.
That took a lot of people, especially all around the state.
Yeah.
If you had a button, would yours be?
Oh
WikiLeaks
well, I'm wearing my WikiLeaks WikiLeaks
Oh,
cup
very
mug,
nice.
and I would be wearing my Stop Torture Now button, but I forgot to put it on because, again, here we are, almost into February of 2020, and Julian Assange is being
This is ridiculous.
murdered in slow motion in Belmarsh prison. So, there you go.
All right. Well, listen, I'm Christian Cano, and Mama Ruth is not with us today, so we will see her next week. Hi, my name is Christian. I just realized I went to some event with this jacket on. I have, of course, Need to Impeach. Today they're doing the questions. The Senate is doing the questions. And if I have lots of buttons. I'm supporting Bernie. I'm also supporting Tom Steyer and Tara Long as well. And as you can tell behind us, the campaign signs that people have come on the show. And the latest one, I just got this one, Cynthia Wallace, who is running in the Congressional District number 9 as a Democrat, and I hope she does well in her primary. All right, so, yes, Mama Ruth says hi. So Tara Long has joined us, so she said thank you, Jenny. Before we start, let's go ahead and salute to Coffee and Pandulce, but I also want to apologize to Manolo's Bakery, who is our Pandulce sponsor. I did not have a chance to stop by there yesterday, so we have Harris Teeter again. And just help yourself, and salute to Coffee and Pandulce. All right, salute. Ching, ching, ching. What a cup! That is what is that's.
Well, you had said bring a cup of
Yes,
your favorite cause.
exactly.
Mine is my kid.
Oh,
wow.
I think he was 5 years old when he made this, and it says "World's Best Dad," and it has "Love You" inside, and at the bottom it says "You full yet?"
I love that. I will have to say.
I will hold it, and he's got his hands like that.
I will have to say that
my
is
favorite,
probably
precious.
the best cup we've had on here in over a year.
It's pretty precious.
I'm very
World's
impressed.
best
I was worried about it.
Come on.
Good
World's
job,
best
good
dad.
job.
I don't believe that.
Hey,
for
Cal-
a
I
moment.
don't either.
Cal Kirby,
I've
who's
known a lot
also
of other dads who are a lot better.
Cal Kirby, who's also running for office, is joining our show as well, and he was on our show a couple of weeks ago, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks
Is that
ago,
right?
yeah.
With Lawana Mayfield and Colette Forrest.
Yeah.
It was the Martin Luther King show. So I want to thank everyone. Hey, guys, help yourself if you're hungry, because I want you to hand me one with a napkin when you have a chance. We don't have any specific topic to talk about other than I think we wanted to talk briefly about cannabis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we are free today to talk about topics.
Yeah.
If you would like, you want to talk about his hat.
But no. Wait, there's plenty of
So
things.
Jeff-
there's plenty of things to talk about. The only problem is
Good morning. Joe Ford has just joined
restricting
us, former state senator.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Ford.
So the only problem is really just restricting the scope of what we want to talk about. But yeah,
Good
well,
luck.
I wanted to throw the cannabis issue out there early on because we had Kyle on a couple weeks ago, and we found that between libertarians and Democrats and Republicans, there is a lot of agreement about this,
There
right?
certainly is. Yes.
And so Richard and I met on the campaign trail a couple years ago, and saw him campaigning against Mujaba Muhammad, who won that seat. But we also met at Normal,
right.
and that was a time when we and Christian and I met at
That's where we
Normal,
met.
right? And so we wanted to bring some of the younger Republicans, or at least some of the more independent thinking Republicans.
Thank you.
We're not going to check IDs here.
When they get in here.
My social security is 5. Okay, that's the. Give me one number.
So anyway, we brought in Nora Trotman, who was running against Jeff Jackson, and Richard, who was running against Muhammad, and we found that we have a lot of agreement on the fact that this movement to let people do what they want with the plants that they grow in their garden is kind of stifled in North Carolina. So North Carolina is going to be probably one of the last states, and so I was trying to put. Let me get to my point here, which is I put this.
I wish you would get to your point.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Long way
Where's-
around the mountain,
Well,
I can tell you. Where's my buzzer?
I had put this to Kyle. I said,
Okay.
what do you think is the holdup? Where do you see the roadblocks? Because 2/3 of the country and probably at least half of this state, maybe not 2/3, know that this is folly, that the drug war is folly, that prohibition is folly. So why haven't the Republicans kind of gotten on board with this? So I don't understand it, and I'm interested. I know, Richard, you can go ahead and tell us your general views, and then get to that.
I think it's important that I preface it with a little bit of background of who I am and what I've done.
Sure.
Because back in the early 90s, I was approached by the federal court to work a civil rights case. I do marketing research. And I got into the research end of investigation on the state and federal level. And they kept handing me case after case, death penalty cases, very serious cases that had to be untangled as far as testimony and evidence to see not only what is going on with prosecution and defense. I was a defense investigator for criminal matters, and mitigating circumstances for people facing the death penalty. Basically, they needed to know, was the evidence presented correct and accurate? Were all procedures followed?
So that's what you did before, and how does that
I did for 5 years.
Cannabis.
I have seen it all.
Oh.
I have seen one of my very first clients who has been in prison now for 35 years, originally was arrested for smoking a joint as a teenager. Okay? Out on the street smoking a joint. I don't have to tell you, he was a black American who ended up then in a jail cell. And before he was 18, the cell was overcrowded with 8 people. One of the people was killed during the nighttime. Everyone fingered him. Now he's up on murder charges. His life is destroyed. He ended up being in prison blinded in one eye. And I got the case because he was practically set on fire in an empty cell with a mattress and nothing else. Okay? It ended up being a very serious civil rights issue. We got him moved out of state prison into a federal prison ultimately, and he was doing better, quote unquote. But in my travels through the criminal justice system, there was a delineation I felt that needed to be made, and any conscious, reasonable person for human rights would say, look, there are dangerous drugs like fentanyl, opioids, and crack, and other things that are highly addictive. We need to address that separately as serious crimes. And then there are, quote unquote, what most people consider as a victimless crime, where someone who grows a pot plant in their house, smokes responsibly, doesn't drive DUI, just like an alcoholic shouldn't, and lives their life quietly and doesn't infringe on anyone. I have to agree with Normal 100%. We've come to a point in this country where we have to say the drug war has not been effective. You don't do something for 30, 40 years and say, look what a success, how many trillions of dollars we poured into this, when a third of black Americans end up in prison over typically minor, non-violent crimes. And we can get into criminal justice.
But not just, let's understand, and that's one of the things that I think Normal has been able to do, but also I think the reason we're changing hearts and minds about this issue with those who come from more a fundamentalist kind of background about drugs, period, and we talked about that, I think, in one of our shows. It not only affects people of color disproportionately higher, but it also just affects poor people. So white poor young men and women have suffered from this, whereas if you go up in Myers Park or Ballantyne, you tend to maybe write you a ticket. So
and those with medical needs.
Sure.
My own brother, who passed away a year and a half ago, had a couple of bouts with cancer, and this was in California, thank God, because he was able to get access to medical marijuana.
Sure.
And, let's be frank and honest. Hemp is not marijuana, and marijuana in itself, now that we know from chemical analysis and pharmaceutical programs, has beneficial effects for certain conditions and diseases. Are we going to withhold that? It's a natural product. It's not something we created in a laboratory.
I think
we do. I mean, but here's the thing.
We attempt to recreate it.
We do stifle it. The war on drugs was always about power and money. It was always about justifying certain things. Like, I want to carry a bottle of whiskey, so I'll call it a snake bite kit, but I'm also carrying the fucking snake. And so there's the issue with the Republicans, is that they have chose to go down this path because the war on drugs was started by a Republican president, Nixon, and it's been every state I've lived in has been predominantly Republican controlled, and every one of the governors always runs on, I'm tough on drugs, I'm tough on crime, I'm tough on this. And every one of those states is in the top 20 of violence against everybody. It is. I hold your party accountable for this because y'all are the ones that push this along.
Well, wait a second. Back up.
No, let me finish.
Yeah.
Don't talk over me, okay? I wasn't finished.
Okay.
And I do hold the Republicans accountable for this because y'all are the ones fighting it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also the ones that are the most tied to private prisons. And it's not lost on me that if you have a pipeline of customers or
Sure.
guests,
I agree.
you're
with this.
growing these industries. I mean, Dick Cheney had direct
that brings
benefit
up a couple of good
for
points.
private prisons, and I'm seeing a supply and demand chain. The reason why they don't want to nationally legalize marijuana is it's a big business to build these prisons. It's put a lot of Republicans in office, and that is my problem with it.
I would say something. I would like to delineate between Republicans and crony capitalists. Because a true Republican, someone who believes in the rights of people and fights for civil rights, as they have done as the party was founded, is not for putting money in their pocket for the sake of earning profit off of misery. I don't know personally any Republican who supports that. In any party, in any group, there are going to be people who rise to power who see profit in destroying the environment or keeping funds from the schools or whatever it is. You're right. You have to trace the economic benefit to determine who's doing what, who's blocking what, and why. If they had a true moral argument, that would come to the forefront, but they really don't. In this case, there's a lot of evidence to support what everyone here is saying, what I think today. And I was just at a criminal justice reform panel last night with the young Republicans, listening from police officers. I spoke to judges and lawyers, sitting judges, and we're all of the same consensus because Nixon was 50 years ago. Let's put a line in the sand and say, today's generations, the two generations coming up behind mine, they weren't alive then. Things have changed, mindsets have changed, and we've learned a lot more.
Let's let Jeff jump in.
Well, yeah, okay, so Just Say No was Nancy Reagan, and that was only 40 years ago. And I wholeheartedly agree with Jenny that this generated within the Republican Party, and John Ehrlichman's memoirs were pretty clear on this, what was happening behind the scenes. But the Democrats are not innocent on this,
Yeah.
because especially if you think about California during the Obama administration, Obama saying we're not going to touch the dispensaries, and what happened? Eric Holder goes in and puts the dispensary. And my dad, a lifelong Democrat, a writer writing for an inner city newspaper on those the dispensaries and all the people who had life-threatening and mortal diseases. He was writing about that, and he saw that happen up close and personal. So that was pretty bad. So the Democrats' hands are not clean on this.
No, not at all. In fact, when you're talking about national level politics, when you're talking about the National Congress, both parties, both ruling parties, follow along what the oligarchy wants, and the rich and the powerful, the top 1%, the investor class, want drugs to stay the way they are in classifications. They're okay with having a drug dealer on every corner. It's called a bar.
You just used a term that encapsulates the entire argument of feds versus states.
Correct.
Personal responsibility. You said the word ruling.
Yeah.
They think and act, no matter who they are at times, they rule over us.
Well, they do.
We have allowed that to continue.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, but they are very good at what they do, though. I mean, if you the oligarchy, the ruling class. So let's just use, and we'll for a minute suspend.
So what does that have to do with cannabis? You're just talking about in general.
They make money off of it.
Well, I mean, they make money off the backs of misery. I mean, whether it's the 9/11 wars for profit, which was also about drugs too, and access to the opium.
I spoke on unconstitutional wars in 2011.
And that same stream of people, if you keep misery up, and you have returning vets from war, which my father was a returning vet from Vietnam, and I saw what he went through as a young man. Lost his lower left leg and his foot in Vietnam in combat. And being a child of a veteran, I mean, I can't imagine how much better his life would have been had he had access to cannabis, had he had ability to not have that shame, which drug shaming of any kind, whether it's heroin, whether it's weed, whether it's all
These
that,
people are
it's
hurting.
crock. It's a crock.
So I just want to kind of swing back around, only because I think we're kind of going on a lot more topics than what we really need to talk about. But so let me just understand what you're saying, because I'm a little confused. Are you're for cannabis, ended in prohibition of cannabis?
I'm 100% ending prohibition for all drugs.
Okay, but your
there is a
argument, or I'm going to say argument, your concern or challenge is you believe that what's holding it back is the Republicans.
I would say it's the ruling class. I think the Republicans are the strongest against it.
And
I'm talking about the ruling class.
I think that's changing.
When it happens, I'll believe it. But on the federal level, let me finish. If you ask me a question, let me finish it.
Well, girl, we only got 1 hour.
but and I'm talking about the federal level.
Okay.
From state to state, we've seen a revolution. You know, but in those states, it's been predominantly Democratic governors that have passed this.
Okay.
I mean, not to put too fine of a point, I don't think there's been a state, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know of a state.
Legislatures are predominantly Republican. This is a bipartisan issue.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that.
Tripartisan, really.
But the governor, the executive branch, is the one that's going to say, I'm not going to sign it or I'm going to sign it.
Yeah. So what do you
and
think
we have
about
not
North Carolina?
seen a state. Well, right now we have a Democrat governor, but a super majority in the House. So.
I know, but is that any different than others? I mean, I don't know that. I'm sure. But I think what Jeff and when I saw Jeff go like this, I understand because I went like that as well. Because when you said I put this on our, you didn't really say I blame the Republicans. You basically said that they're what's holding us back. It's kind of the impression I got. And when you said that, the first person I thought of was Jeff Jackson.
Good.
Jeff Jackson is the most anti everything progressive, and he's a Democrat.
Right.
So I think we have to be fair when we say it's not just Republicans. We've got, and within our own party, we've got people who live in the 1950s, like Jeff Jackson, who acts like he's progressive, but he's really not. He is so anti this.
Right. And I do think, and one of the things is,
and I'm not just saying that because he's running
but is the temperance movement, like with prohibition of alcohol,
Right.
you know, it was very religious people. They you know, were the goats for this power grab.
That's what Amy Sandy McPherson, wasn't that the
and I mean it was a brutal battle. People don't realize how brutal.
And it gave rise to gangsterism, and it entrenched the mobs.
Because you went black market, and the same way with the sex trade. If you had open, you know, buildings.
This is where both parties have an issue. They have a problem in recognizing the logical connections. The reason, and I think we all agree, we need to legalize marijuana. There's a lot of benefits. We can go into that. But there are other facets to it that solve other problems.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Because they're logically related. One, we want to get kids a good education, right? How about we start like a Teach for America Corps? We have a Mental Health for America Corps. Any young person going into social service, social working, psychology and all, you do your 4 years, 6 years, you get your graduate degree, you work for the state for 5 years for, you know, a standard wage that we come up with to help alleviate the hard drug addicted, the opioids, address that crisis wholesale with large number of counselors and beds and places we can build from the revenue that comes in from legalized marijuana, from commercial growing licenses. Don't you think the tobacco companies in 30 hours or less would have their papers on the desk to sign a check to turn those tobacco fields into marijuana growing fields, we'd have the best marijuana in the country.
I will have to say that unfortunately Mama Ruth is not here today, but she's here with Spirit, and she's waving her hand saying, I totally agree with him. So that is, if she were sitting here, she'd be turning to you and saying that.
And do you know what? There wasn't a Republican last night that I spoke to, old or young, professional or not, that didn't agree with this. Mm-hmm. The time has come to put our best foot forward, recognize the infighting is over, and figure out what are the benefits we're going to realize from this. How can we corral it so that we use it to its best effect across the board and solve some of our problems. I think what I have the biggest problem with when I go to forums, I appear on shows, is it always devolves into you did this and you did that and history lessons. And worse, it talks about all of our problems. We can complain all we want. I want to hear how we're going to solve these things and what the positive effect is.
Let you say something, and then I want to say something, and then
sure. Now
great. Ruth just wanted us to remind people that she is a independent. So all right,
okay,
excellent.
Well, I was just saying that this sort of broad coalition here is all independents, right? I mean, you're independent Democrats or progressives.
Democratic Libertarian.
So we're very much in the minority of the corporate parties, right? I'm a libertarian. I'm a third party, so I'm completely out of
I would say, Jeff, that we are in the majority at the local level, but we're in the minority in the power structure.
That's true.
And most people at the local level
I would have to say I'm not familiar entirely with the power structure because I'm not in it.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to...
You wouldn't be sitting in this room if you were in the power structure, babe. I mean,
yes, I would, because
we have
to tell you one thing.
Personally, I will meet with anyone anytime to discuss anything.
I'm telling you, this is not the road to power structure.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Just giving you a friendly
This is a road to
raisin toast.
I have to say it because I have to say it every episode. It's a road to tomfoolery, fuckery, and welcome to the Thunderdome.
Welcome to the Thunderdome. Anyway,
you had me once I saw Matthew Ridden. That was it.
Well, my point is that this coalition of people who are supporting normal are mostly very much independent of the whatever you want to call it, the oligarchy or the power structure, the elite, the 1%, the top cronies, and Richard himself is an independent Republican. But as you can see, this is this second or third time we've had a Republican on who said a true Republican is really a libertarian.
Kyle? Stoney has gotten me to say
it's inclusive. It's inclusive of a lot of the positions.
Exactly. That's right.
And as far as progressivism, Republicans have been very progressive.
In certain ways.
First women candidates, women's vote, Wyoming. We've been the forefront of a lot of issues. Reintegration of the military after Wilson had segregated it, World War I. Eisenhower, who we find out may have actually had African American ancestry, making him the first black president.
So I guess the question,
Nixon, Reagan, a lot of programs, whether it was Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act, has always been supported by the Republicans.
I think the question is, and this is what I see. I get a sense from Jenny that because we're just so connected spiritually, I get this sense from Jenny that
when I come back, I'm going to be just like you.
That's right. Well, I get the sense from Jenny that I think a lot of there are some people that I understand what she's saying because there's this thinking or this belief. Especially from people who have been marginalized. And I think we've seen that over the last 10 years, and it's really been highlighted now, that there's a certain part of America, they tend to be Republican because they have been in power for a while. I guess I don't know how to equate that. And the Republicans do a really good job of this. They marginalize someone, and then they say, forgive me.
Right.
And
well,
if they mean it in their heart and they're working towards some kind of goal that alleviates the conflict, then yes, please forgive me. But if it's phony, then no.
No, but what I'm saying is my point to when you said that why don't we start like ground zero and start forward, that happened 30, 40 years ago. I think because I've heard this in my neighbors and my family conversations as well. I have some neighbors that will tell me, like the Women's March was this weekend, the Me Too movement, and they're like, oh, come on, y'all, get over this. I mean, not everybody can do this. And I understand what they're saying, but I also, and as an LGBT person, I also understand that when someone's foot is on your neck for so long, and then they lift their foot, and then they go, "I'm so sorry I did that." It is the first time they do it. Okay, I apologize, and then they do it again to someone else, and then they release it and go, "Okay, I'm so sorry I did this." It's like, at what point do we stop accepting your apology, and then we start holding you accountable? So there is a little bit of, I don't want to forget what happened 50, 40 years ago, because y'all haven't forgotten.
Well, the problem is, here's the problem is that you wrote a very false narrative when you said, oh, well, the y'all legislating morality happened 40, 50 years ago. That's shit in a shoebox. It's happening right now. You look at Tennessee and the whole adoption thing with LGBT families, and Republicans keep going back to the high moral ground or the fake high moral ground and keep trying to legislate what people are doing.
Are they Republicans or are they?
They're Republicans. No. I experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced this. Let's look at HB2. Let's look at the bathroom bills. Let's look at the anti-adoption with LGBT people. Those are all Republicans. They voted along party lines both in this state and in Texas for bathroom bills in recent years. In 2016 and 2017, it is not, last year alone, Texas proposed over 20 anti-LGBT bills. 20.
Okay.
And that was 2019, and it was a Republican every single time that wrote the bill. So when you're trying to when we're talking about morality, because whether it's drugs, which drugs are considered immoral by some people, or the LGBT community or many other communities, your party, including in your platform, has anti-LGBT wording. And when y'all get out of the business of legislation morality and treat humans like humans, then we can talk. But no, I don't trust you. Your party's policies have killed people like me and has caused problems, and y'all need to answer for it. And I'm tired of Republicans doing the matrix when I bring it up, and I personally know them. They're like, oh, well, that wasn't me. That was the ruling class. I'm going, no, but you're a part of a party that in every level of your platforms has anti-LGBT verbiage.
And how do you change people's hearts and minds?
By y'all fixing your problem. Clean thy house.
People within the party.
Yeah.
Yes. But you need to clean your house. You need to clean your house.
Legalization is happening.
You need to clean your house before
Things change.
It would be great. When y'all going to change them? When are you going to change them? You're in that party. When are you going to speak out against violence against LGBT?
Then I have the authority.
You're in the party now.
You know, I have a pulpit.
Are you a member of the Republican Party right now?
Sure, yes.
So you have a say. When y'all go to conventions, when y'all go to meetings, you have a say.
Well,
and have you spoke out against that morality?
That's a good question, because I understand what she's saying. I understand what she is, and I guess that is a question that maybe some people have, because there is this image right now with the Republican Party, and we started the show by me saying you guys are great at branding, and so it is interesting that you guys know what you're doing. You know the brand that you have established right now. So y'all, I know when y'all go to your meetings, because we've been to some of the meetings, I know that they're obviously the majority, I would think, of the party maybe say it's not us, but they're not trying to change it. And that probably goes with a lot of parties.
It takes time and effort. You
No,
know,
it
when you
doesn't.
go to a convention, you have hundreds and hundreds of delegates.
But you don't know that there's that problem? I mean...
Are y'all aware?
We recognize, I believe, Republicans across the board recognize that times change, people change, things change.
It's just slow.
Well, you know, look at any legislative body in history. They always lag behind what's going on at the grassroots level in society.
Well, there's a difference between lagging and purposely going after certain groups.
Sure.
There's a huge difference. I mean, there's one where you're just going, we don't want to change the Constitution. We don't want to, do any more civil rights bills. We're tired of change. But there's another when y'all target certain groups, and I want to address that because Kyle dodged it when he was on here. I mean,
and
he dodged it.
He's actually watching us right now.
And Kyle, hi, you dodged the question. I'd love for you to come on and actually answer the question next time. The question was, for example, I brought up H.R. 1, which was passed by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat-controlled National House. Went passed on May 17th of last year. May 20th, it was presented to the Senate. Mitch McConnell buried it in a committee and has never let it out.
But like 200 other bills have also been buried as well.
Well, yeah, but
Okay.
but this one was a landmark
Sure,
bill
sure.
that every time I bring it up to Republicans, they say, "Oh, it sounds great. It sounds great." I'm going, okay, pass it. Pass it. Pressure your national representatives in your party to release that and let it go to a vote. Mitch McConnell won't let it go to a vote because he's afraid of looking stupid. He's afraid of looking like, oh, I passed something that's going to protect the LGBT community. Now these states can't start passing these hate bills.
I want to comment on that because I have Republican friends, and I just want to let you know what they say to me as well. But you want to say something, Jeff?
Well, yeah, the Republicans are a big tent party, right? And certainly don't want to be held responsible for all the wacky things libertarians have done for the last 50 years. And I happen to be
Democrats.
And
Yeah.
the same way that
Oh, no,
Democrats.
we
And
did
I
some
happen
crazy stuff
to be in the state
Yeah, right.
because I'm a secular candidate.
Sure.
I'm kind of a minority within my own party too. So I think it's a little unfair to hold Richard, who's not in the power structure,
I'm not afraid
who's
to
not
speak.
an oligarch.
I'm not afraid of speaking. I
Well,
want to speak
no,
to his
no,
point
I
because
just-
it's an important point to make.
Yeah, but the point about the fact we've got a big tent, you're doing the best you can, you're fighting the issues that you can fight, the things that you think you can influence, that's a lot, right? So the fact that you would be you could somehow have an impact on Mitch McConnell, right?
Yeah, but
Would be-
that's also
Power, guys.
But if
Power
you're gonna-
filters up.
Yeah.
But also too is that if we're going to start somewhere, the dialogues have to be harm reduction.
Sure.
And if you have one party in the United States that's consistently harming minorities in this country, like the Republicans are doing,
I do not agree with that 100%. I'm sorry.
babe, I can pull up. There's been
And I
over
can
two.
pull up.
I can pull up bill after bill after bill after bill, including in this state.
So you believe that the Republican Party currently, and I'm not disagree with you. I'm just saying that what you're saying
They're
is.
targeting
I
the
just
LGBT
want
community.
to clarify what people who are watching this and watch this later. And I understand your concern. And I will say to Jeff and to Richard's point, at what point, and this is the reason we started the show, so that way all of our neighbors could sit around regardless of what party you belong to and talk to each other. I do think it's a little unfair. We have to reach what can Republicans do? And I don't know if they can do it for you, but what can Republicans like Richard or Kyle or Matthew or Stoney, who we've had on the show, and other Republicans and so forth, what can they do to convince you that they're doing their best to change this image within their own party?
This mentality.
I don't want them to change their image. I actually want them to do the work. I
Okay,
don't want them to be a
he's right.
performative
So
ally.
what-
It's she, her. But
Sure.
I'm a
Sorry,
woman.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so use the right pronouns, please. I've earned those. All right.
So what can they do?
Quit being performative. Quit being performative and actually start on your local level. You have a local platform,
Sure.
Mecklenburg County or whatever county you're in, and you have anti-LGBT verbiage in that. You can change that. You can choose to change that. Y'all vote on that stuff. You can pull that stuff out on the state level. When you go to the state convention,
I would like
you can
to
bring
see
that
the
up.
local verbiage that you're talking about.
I can email it to you. I'd be happy to.
So what you're
because
saying-
every
Sure.
Republican Party chapter in the United States has the same verbiage.
Jenny, I just want to say two things real quickly. I want to thank Kyle Kirby, who's watching us, and Kyle, thank you for what he said. He said, I think he insinuated that you're also trying to make change within your party, as Kyle is trying to make change within his party. Former Senator Joe Ford said, check out the federal Farm Bill of 2018, which opened the cannabis industry to the banking and insurance. Thank you, former Senator Joe Ford. We hope to see you get elected today, again one day. And so the reason I have asked that question is because what I'm hearing, and you can correct me, is I'm hearing you want someone who's a Republican like Richard basically say, I'm sorry, we screwed up.
No, he
This
wants action.
Okay, so
She
wants
I
action.
want action.
So you want him to promise action.
I don't care if he does it or not.
Okay,
I want to see
So your
it.
frustration is going to
I
be
don't
that way
care
until you see the action.
because I'm not going to believe you anyway. until I see a Republican.
Well, that's fine. No,
Well,
the
no.
proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
Exactly. And here's the thing, and Kyle came on the show and was like, oh, I'm an ally and I've got gay friends and all that. And I've heard this before. But when I asked him that question, his only thing is he turned it against me and said, are you living your best life? And I'm going, it has nothing to do with me, honey. Of course, I'm living my best life in spite of the society's aggression towards me.
Okay.
So they have nothing to do with each other. Me living my best life is rugged individualism, which y'all love that. And so, and I believe in rugged individualism too. I think you have some personal responsibility to do the best fight you can every single day.
I don't feel any aggression whatsoever towards really anyone.
I know, but your party does.
That's a heavy accusation, and it's very vague and broad.
Well, I mean, do y'all not see? I mean, there is a portion of of America. Obviously, since let's just go by the numbers. In Mecklenburg County, it's very difficult to be elected as a Republican. So obviously the brand suffers. So obviously the majority, at least the voting majority, I want to say the majority of the voting, which is probably a small percentage, don't like the Republican brand, don't like what you've had to offer because you can't elect anybody. And so that in itself is proof that that brand or that theory is not working in most of the major urban areas in North Carolina. So that in itself says something we're not doing is right. In the rural areas, you're still being able to elect it.
Yeah, but does a party conform to the people to cater to them and pander to them, or does the party say, these are our principles, do you like them, and if you agree with them, you vote for the party?
Okay.
Obviously, on the basis of, balancing budgets and economic principles and certain, hardcore business aspects, people say, well, the Republican Party is very good at this. On some social issues, they say the Republican Party is, adequate on this. And on other issues, for yourself, you'd say the Republican Party has completely failed on this. No one party or large group is ever going to be able to put together a platform that satisfies, like, every sector.
But in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County, for whatever reason, people here have made the decision that at this moment in space and time, that Democrats are offering them the best option, which is why they're being elected.
And that's why they're voting for them.
Yes, and so within this, I'm sure there has to be conversations within the Republican Party. What are we doing wrong? I love Jeff Scott. I love the libertarian outreach, but apparently the libertarian idea is not working in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County because they're not voting libertarian.
That's right. And Republicans won't even vote for libertarians.
Yes, and but I will say this.
But to be fair, if you want me to answer your question, because you asked me, you said that it was a very general statement. In specifics, speaking to your hat, President Trump in his first year went after the transgender community by trying to kick out all trans service members.
Look, if someone wants to serve their country and possibly risk their life and die, I'm not going to be the one standing there saying, hey, you don't have a right to do this.
But understand,
at the same time, we shouldn't be economically beholden to them to pay for a surgery that's elective.
There is, well, first of all, it's not elective. It's not elective, babe. You need to get yourself educated. Second is that the military spends $5 billion on medical needs, not just for trans people.
Okay.
So it is a bigger part of society. And so when you're talking about that, it's a very small percentage of their medical budget, the truth is. The Pentagon studied for 10 years. The study began in George W. Bush's deal. They said, hey, this is starting to become a deal. There's enough of them serving. There's enough of them coming out. We need to study this to see what their deal is. They actually had procedures in place. They had procedures in place for quite a while before Trump even took office. They knew what they were doing, and then Trump comes in and says, I just want to kick out all 14,000 of them. And they're like, wait, we've already studied this. Every member of the top brass in the military said, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so I'll wrap this up real quick. That is, again, a Republican agenda targeting a group of people, and you wanted specifics that was counter to the Pentagon.
Other than being elected as a Republican and running into the party, because Trump formally, he identified as Democrat, he'd been independent,
Well, I don't have a Democrat coming after
politics. Me. I want to ask what the question I want to ask is, What was the benefit? What was the rationale behind it? The why?
He doesn't know.
What is
why.
the reasoning?
Well, that's
a great idea
that's a good
because I
point,
don't
Richard.
even know.
And-
Other than
Well, then let's not
discrimination.
ascribe aggression and hate to it
Yeah.
until we know further what the man is thinking.
Well, I mean,
Or
first of
not
all,
thinking.
it was arbitrary and it was countering against the experts. The experts that studied it, they have procedures in place. They had the Pentagon wasn't asking him to do that.
I would agree with Jenny. I don't think that the LGBT.
There was no innocence
I
there.
don't think that the LGBT walking backwards on those things from Trump. I don't think it has a lot to do with facts and science. I think it has a lot to do with pandering a very specific group of maybe evangelical people who say, this is another little win, another little win.
Right.
And he has been doing this because I don't think Trump himself,
Trump himself has no
I don't think
idea.
he cares. I think he's just doing whatever he needs to do, and that's unfortunate because he is. There's a lot of Trump supporters that are LGBTQ. Believe it or not, there's a lot of them that are LGBTQ.
there are.
Chickens for chicken McNuggets.
Well, no, I understand that, but we do have to appreciate that there are. But
Yeah, there are.
I think the difference between Jenny and I, and we've talked about this too, is I know Jenny shows her frustration towards the people that are openly oppressing people, and as Jenny belongs to several marginalized groups, as a woman, as an LGBTQ person, as a trans person. I belong to. We all, I think, belong to certain. As an LGBT person, as a Hispanic, which I've never ever been discriminated against as much in North Carolina is crazy. They don't care if you're gay, but don't be Mexican. It is the craziest thing in the world here. But that's the changing. That's the bless your heart white kind of thing. I'm not as angry and concerned about the Republicans. I do, but not as openly. Because as a Democrat, I'm angrier or concerned about Democrats who, with their silence and allow things like to happen, like Jeff Jackson, like Julie Eisel, like these bless your heart Democrats that within our own party.
Then get them out and get someone. Vote for the person. Jeff
I agree.
Jackson's opponent is Sonia.
She's really good, and your opponent.
She is representative
Yes.
of a new Republican.
She's an African American female, and she's Republican. She's sharp as a tack.
She's economically, fiscally sound,
Sure.
and socially progressive.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you've been screaming about,
Mm-hmm.
This is, I believe there is a metamorphosis and an evolution of politics and of thinking in this country. And of course you're going to have people that, on any side, on any side, any end of the spectrum, they're so married to their beliefs today, they will never, ever, ever change. It wouldn't matter if you were dying in the street and you needed their help, they would walk right by. But the vast majority of Americans are wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with on a personal level. I don't have a problem. I count many Republicans, many conservatives. I mean, my dad is a MAGA hat wearing retired
And he
military.
loves you.
Girl, that sounds so bigoted.
So
you
Your
said
dad
that.
loves you and supports you?
Well, I mean, I said
No,
MAGA hat. I
no,
said
but-
I didn't put another
I know,
additive to
but
it.
that sounds like us being back in Texas, where our crazy country neighbors say, "I got black friends."
Well,
I mean, the way you said it was like, "I got Republican friends."
I go through that every day.
Never mind that they're racist and everything else.
I go through the fact that
you can't do it both ways, guy. You have to either be accepting of
quit
those.
using male pronouns. I mean, it's going to get ugly fast.
Yeah.
You either use man, she, or her.
This
Are they-
is new
they-
for a lot of people.
It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't
It
be that
is
hard.
hard.
If you have no, it really isn't. I'm not going to give you a free pass on it. Thank you very much.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, really,
But I came out of art school in New York. This is nothing. I used to go to school with David Bowie's backup singer. He wore his costumes to class.
Then it's nothing new for you. Then it's nothing new. You
But
can't have it
I
both
don't
ways,
look
my
at
dear.
the clothes. It's a.
I'm a woman. Jenny,
Well,
I'm old.
that's no excuse. My dad's
all right.
76.
I don't want to digress to that, but I understand. Bless your heart, praise the Lord.
Let's support her.
Listen, it is.
I got it that
we've
time.
got about 10 minutes left, but listen,
That's
we were
it?
talking about cannabis. It's gone by so
Time goes
fast,
fine.
and this is Mama Ruth. We did miss you today.
the voice of reason.
The voice of the Mama voice of reason. We'd love to have you back, Richard, but I really want to see you. We're going to read that. I really want to see you on the Wired and Tired show, Because the Wired and
What is
Tired
that?
show, it is after this. It's on the first Monday, the first and third Wednesday of every month. It's a Wired and Tired show. It's immediately after this one. It's an hour long. Jenny and that's Wired and that's Tired, and they talk for an entire hour about one specific issue. And one of the things that we know, and I know that we don't talk enough about, and you kind of gently hit it, but we have to talk about it later, is the misunderstanding. Because even I, and you know, when we first met, I didn't truly understand how the brain works and the transgender process and so forth. So, and you explained that to me, and I appreciated you educating me on that, because I've tried to also educate other people. When you made the statement earlier about it's an elected thing, those are the same statements that used to be made against me, that it was a preference. It is being gay is a preference.
Lifestyle.
And it's a lifestyle. It's a preference, as if though I had a choice. Of course, when I was younger, I didn't know. I didn't know it better. Well, now we know that it's not a. Why would I choose to live under scrutiny when I could, you know? So
why would you choose to be a man?
But honestly, until you told me you were a member of the LGBT community, I had no idea.
Well, but that's.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have a G tattoo on his
No,
forehead.
but my point is, so it is an education process, I think, that we all have to help each other with. And I understand that because...
Well, my super quick explanation is that when my mom was carrying me for those 9 months, that her hormones got crossed up. In the first 3 months, of course, is when your genitalia is formed. So I got outdoor plumbing because she was higher in testosterone. Cis women carry high amounts of testosterone and estrogen in their body. So either her estrogen dropped or her testosterone went up. Gave me the outdoor plumbing. Second and third trimesters, when the brain forms, her estrogen went up, testosterone went down. I am literally female wired. If they did a post-mortem brain imprint of me tomorrow, let's say I died tomorrow, I would have the exact same brain imprint as a cis woman.
That must be very difficult.
It's flipping the hardest thing. There's a reason why we have 40% suicide attempt rate.
And
the
that's
highest of any, even including returning veterans from war. And there's a reason in it, and part of it comes from society and people misgendering us, assaulting us. I'm a personal victim of a hate crime.
Oh my God.
So the reality is, when I speak to societal aggression towards certain people, I've lived it. It's a lived experience. It isn't something I'm just pulling out of the air. Is that I've felt it. And when you have constant people in leadership posts proposing bills after bills, and people read that, the rank and file person that maybe is just not real smart, the elevator doesn't hit the top floor, they read it and they go, oh, it's okay. They're less than human. When you demonize any population, it's dangerous. And it's just like the old rumors, like, oh, if we freed the slaves, these black men would be running all over raping women and children. Of course, that didn't happen.
I agree with that.
And it's just that constant demon. Yes, are there good Republicans? Absolutely. Am I friends with several of the young Republicans? Yeah, I've been to their meetings several times as an invited guest. I do believe there needs to be a dialogue. And that's why I'm here talking to you today.
Well, you're a co-host also.
Yeah, well, that too. I'm kind of here every week, but I am imploring you to influence your fellow Republicans and have the voice of reason to get out of the morality business. And by hoping that someday we don't talk about somebody transitioning, somebody being gay, somebody smoking a little weed. Let's take the morality out of the discussion. Let's reduce harm in our society. That you want to do with legalizing marijuana, I want to do in my LGBT community, where you just look at me and go,
Jenny,
that's who she is.
Jenny,
you know what I mean?
We need to cut real fast, but you want to say something in 30 seconds before we read the Constitution of the Week. Well, let me say that thank you for being on here, Richard, and I appreciate you hearing what we have to say and us hearing what you have to say as well.
It's a good sport.
We do this all the time, but I will say that, and you take back to your party and those who watch us and those who know us, there are many unaffiliated and many libertarians and even many Democrats who would like to come back to the Republican Party if they just got rid of the crazy. And I think y'all can see that they're like, I love the person who was running against Ed Driggs during his primary. She was an African American woman from Ballantyne. She was a Republican, and I was really supporting her. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of Ed Driggs, but Ed Driggs won. So I would like to see some Republicans on the county commission. I would like to see more of them on our city council. Believe it or not, I know I'm going to be hated for saying those kind of things, because I do like that balance and that diversity. We can't talk about diversity if we have all just Democrats.
Oh, definitely.
But unfortunately, we just don't have it. We need more people like you who are willing to listen and
listen.
Yes.
Listen, engage. Look at the unintended consequences of any law prior to putting it into action. This applies to anything. Any kind of compliance or regulation. Power is at the top.
Sure.
You don't get there by screaming.
Yeah.
You have to work diligently. And that doesn't mean, like, as Jeff Jackson said in the last forum, we need all Democrats in the legislature. Groupthink and one mindset is not the solution to anything.
I'm not a big fan of Jeff Jackson. Have you noticed?
Well,
he's going to be my new state senator.
For anyone
elected, so I want to make sure he gets on the council. Go ahead.
If you're interested in reading some common sense material, please go to my website, voterivette.com, VOTERIVETTE.com.
Now,
I'm willing to engage people and write about topics that sometimes it might irritate everybody, not just my own party.
Welcome to
But the fact is, the longer you live, the more experience you gain, the more you get a perspective on what would a real world solution to this be.
Sure.
So that we aren't harming anyone.
Well, let me give you all a suggestion. I'll give you a suggestion.
And I love that. I do believe you're sincere.
Girl,
I do believe.
I got to wrap this up.
Okay, well, wrap it up.
I understand that, but I will say that I appreciated how many Republicans showed up to the Black Political Caucus event and other events as well. But what I would suggest that you take to your chairperson, who I wish had been replaced by our good friend, our neighbor here, who lives not very far from us, because I think y'all do need a new chair in Mecklenburg County. But what I would suggest is that y'all coach yourselves on how to go to those kind of events, because there are things that y'all say that come across as cuckoo, and I don't think you realize that.
Oh, I did. I also heard a lot of biased questions.
Yes.
The very first question
Of course.
was, Republicans have destroyed this.
Yep.
How do you feel about? Well, of course you've set up the question for complete and total failure. You got to get moderators who actually know how to ask generic
It's a Black Political
questions.
Caucus. That's what's going to happen.
Good luck with that.
I was talking about, for example, fathers in the home and using the Kentucky bill to get fathers back in the home. Fathers.
I understand
I
what
didn't
you're
delineate.
No.
And the first question from the moderator was, well, black fathers are a higher percentage. I don't care what percentage, I'm not talking about
Richard,
race. I'm talking about the guy that's not in the home.
But you have to understand
with the mom.
You have to understand your audience. There has been a history of white America and specifically white Charlotte.
Oh, I'm white.
I'm trying to explain this to you. There has been this history of them thinking that black people don't have fathers. And so when you said that, it hit a little nerve within that audience, because I felt it, and I'm not African American, but I know that audience. That's not stuff that you say. It was like Kyle made the unfortunate
if we
error.
don't talk about it.
No, I understand, but
I had no father.
You have to. It would be like me being at the LGBT caucus meeting and going, now gay people just have sex all the time. And they need it, and that's my opening statement. Right. You immediately, that audience, or it would be me at being the Republican going, now Republicans have had a history of racism. And this is, to start off with that, no, I understand.
Where do you go from there?
Exactly. So, all right, Constitutional Quote of the Week, we run over, and I know you've got to go to Washington, D.C., and you've got some things you got to do. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're going to read the Constitutional Quote of the Week. Richard, would you like to read Amendment number 1?
Page 21.
Page 22.
Oh, it's
right.
Constitutional
21.
law.
Oh, 21, okay.
Amendment 1. This is the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people, peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
So, do you think that is being violated in the case of the Espionage Act against Assange and the way that it's also being used in Brazil? We've got a Latin American
Let me speak to
audience.
Assange.
30 seconds. We're over.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He did, no matter what you consider of what he did, he had the right to do it. If we are not going to stand up for each other's rights, there's nothing left to stand up for.
As you see, the first
That's right.
5. Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly. Well, listen, this has been a great show, and I wish we had a longer. And thank you, Jenny, for always keeping our shows exciting. I love your passion, and thank you for being on the show. Ruth said this very well. She says, "Thanks, Richard. Hope to meet you in person, and I hope the feeling, essence of the right change can start with us, not the party we represent." Basically, I know Ruth, and basically Ruth is saying that we just need to listen to each other and talk to each other. And as coming from a family whose mom voted for Ted Cruz, I will say that I hope your party changes, because my mom is a Republican. She's a diehard Republican. She loves Ted Cruz, and my brother had to put a Beto sign in her front yard, and she took it out. And so I'm just telling you that please change, because my mom's not going to change, and I don't want her to die crazy. So, all right, thank you. Tell us where you're going to be. Alexa, play Pandora.
Actually, I have no plans this weekend. It's
Careful.
Sorry, you're still mic'd in.
Yeah.
So I have no specific plans, no meetings the rest of the week. So
Awesome.
It's gonna be, oh no, I'm going to the Tom Steyer thing on Saturday for about an hour. I got invited.
That's right.
I figure you're behind that.
That's right.
So I'm just driving up to Washington, D.C. I'm going to play tourist for a couple of days. I'm going to go to the Courage Foundation meeting tomorrow night for talk about the case of Julian Assange, and then I'm going to see a musical on Friday night at the Kennedy Center. So I'm just going to be having a good time.
Wow.
I will be attending the county precinct meeting where anything and everything will be discussed. And I invite anyone who is a Republican, a registered Republican, who in their precinct has never maybe participated before, come to the meeting. I think the doors open at 8, 8:30 or 9, and then when they close when the meeting starts, it's an official Republican meeting. This is a chance for you to become a delegate and have your voice heard and to vote on rules and procedures and party platform. So, to the people out there who have views that they want to express, join us. It's a big party, it's a big tent, and we'd love to have you. Don't forget, vote Rivette at voterivette.com for NC House 107. Get a voice of reason in there.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye. Everybody wave.